People as a rule are fascinated by the supernatural, things they can't see. And in a place like Charleston, where there's so much history and so much culture and so much tragedy that has happened here in the last 334 years, it's a nice fit, and people just love it. And the city lends itself so well to nighttime tourism. It's great. These buildings are beautiful, they're well lit, it's an easy and safe town to walk through, and that all plays a big part of why ghost tours are so popular. People that take my tour, they're very curious. We have a lot of folks who are a little skeptical. They're thinking that it's going to be more like a haunted house with people jumping out at them and sound effects and stuff like that, and that's not the case. We tell hardcore, factual stories that we've researched, and you can draw your own interpretation from that. We've had 5 major fires, we've had earthquakes, hurricanes, tornadoes, epidemics, plagues, you name it. We've had it here in Charleston. And what happens in tragedies is people die unexpectedly. And oftentimes when people die unexpectedly, they have unfinished business here on Earth. Another major reason for all the ghosts that we have, all the old buildings. We have over 2,500 antebellum homes here in Charleston, and kind of the theory being that many families have lived in these homes through the years, many generations, and that, quite frankly, many of their families' ancestors still do. The dungeon was built by the British in 1771, and it was built to house just your common criminals. One of the most famous prisoners ever was Isaac Kane, who was imprisoned in there in 1781. The British basically did a witch hunt, and they didn't like anybody who was politically assertive out on the streets causing trouble, so they captured Isaac Kane, who was a very popular, well-off businessman, and they threw him into the dungeon, and without a trial he was sentenced to hang for treason. The legend is, on the day of his execution, the British led Isaac, while he was in shackles and chains, through the streets of Charleston, and on purpose the British led him by his sister's home. Her words were, "Isaac, please come back." And Isaac responded, "I will if I can, I will if I can." They took him to the gallows and he was hanged. My belief that Isaac kept his promise to his sister as far as coming back, because it would sure help explain a lot of the odd things that happen in the dungeon. We hear footsteps, we hear sounds, we see bizarre reflections. One of my favorite ghost stories I learned as a carriage driver about 14 years ago. There was a local fella who had taken his wife out to dinner down at one of the restaurants in the city market. And after dinner, he thought it would be kind of fun to take his wife and his new camera, kind of stroll through the French Quarter and take some pictures. So they snuck through the back of the graveyard and took some pictures, and they thought nothing of it, and they go home. And a couple weeks later, the fellow went and picked up the pictures at the photo lab and brings them home, and he's sitting there and just kind of flipping through them all, and he comes across one picture that really captures his attention, and it scares him. I have a copy of the picture that this man had taken. This was back in the summer of 1987. Turns out that Sue Howard had died while giving birth to a child on June 10th of 1887. So 99 years later, the date of her child's birth and death, here's believed to be the image of Sue Howard in front of the grave, paying respect to the child that she never got to keep. My grandmother, pretty interesting 87-year-old eccentric lady, and her theory on all of this is that Charlestonians, we love our city so much that we just want to do it at least twice, and that's why we have as many ghosts. But you can pick whatever reason you would like.